because this meeting is being recorded. Let's not say anything we regret. So I'm always excited to come to Classical Singer. I actually, going way back in my life, I'm like a, old man now, but way back in my life, I was a classical singing major at Northwestern University. So I came out of that program. I was a classical pianist before that. So I have a lot of background in classical music, but nowadays, and really for the last couple of decades, really all I do is sort of pop and contemporary music. So I'm always deeply interested in working with singers who have classical training but are interested and open to the idea of doing crossover material and moving into the more contemporary vocal realm. I don't know if that's kind of the experience of those of you who are in the room now, but that is an interest of mine. I also come from the world of Broadway and theater. I have played about 60 Broadway shows and was a music director, an orchestrator, an arranger, still am, I guess, and also a professor at the University of Miami for 11 years, which I just finished actually in May. So that's not that's just to give you a sense of what my different areas of interest are, not to sort of, I'm not flexing here, I'm just sort of letting you know sort of where I come from, so you're not sort of like, who is this strange person that I'm speaking to in this Zoom room? So that's a little bit about me. My understanding is that we have 3 singers who are prepared to sing, which is fantastic. The names that I have here, and please let me know if I'm not pronouncing these correctly, are Aminata, Emerald, and Madison. Is that correct? Yeah, all 3 of you? Okay, fantastic. So what we'll do is I guess we'll go sort of maybe in that order, unless you guys have a strong feeling otherwise. I'll work with you on some of your material in front of the group so everyone can sort of learn from your work and you can learn from it, and we can have a sort of collective experience as we do in these group classes. And then at the end of the class, if there's time, I certainly would be happy to open it up to Q&A and answer any questions you might have about what we talk about today, or about Royal Caribbean, or just about the weather in Miami, or whatever you want to ask about. So anyway, let's start. If you guys are ready with Aminata. Is that yourself? Okay, hi.
Hi.
Am I saying your name correctly?
Yes, sir. You said it correctly.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, I'm going to put you on speaker view because I want to make sure that I see you in full there. Aminata, will you say something nice and loud so you pop onto my speaker view right there?
Hello.
Ah, there
Hi.
you are. Gorgeous. Okay, fantastic. Okay, tell me a little bit about what brings you here today, Aminata, and what you want to work on, what repertoire you brought, what kind of, if there's anything about your background you feel like we should know in terms of your singing.
I was like, okay. Um, okay. I'm from Georgia.
Ooh,
I'm
me too.
currently.
Yeah,
Oh, me too.
originally. I grew up in Atlanta, but yeah.
I am currently in college. I'm a sophomore now, so
Great. Where are
yay.
you in college? Where are you studying?
I'm studying at Reinhardt University.
Oh, that's in it or outside of Atlanta? Am I making that up?
It's outside of Atlanta. It's like 30 minutes away from
Okay,
Atlanta.
gotcha. Cool, nice. And are you
Um,
studying classical voice, or what's your area of study?
I'm a musical theater major, but my voice teacher, we I have classical training kind
Yeah.
of because my voice is that way, but then I can also do contemporary and pop and all. So,
Well, that's brilliant. I love that. Okay, great. What did you bring to work on today? What do you want to work on today?
um, like how many? I'm just gonna name songs. I have "Love Don't Turn Away" from 110 in the Shade.
Huh?
Then I have "Times Are Hard for Dreamers" from Amelie, and then "In My Dreams" from Anastasia.
I mean, they're all great songs. It's entirely up to you what you sort of feel inspired by today.
I feel like I want to do "Love Don't Turn Away."
Okay, let's do that. Great.
Okay.
And Aminata, I'm just going to mute myself so you have the floor here, and then we'll sort of reconnect once you're done singing and talk about it.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Aminata Jalo, and I'll be performing Love Don't Turn Away from 110 The Shade. Maybe, could be, maybe, could be, just might be. I have so many things I want to do. so many things saved up to say. I have so many longings that belong to you. So long, don't turn away. I have so many songs I want to sing to you. I have so many smiles that I could cry. I have so many kisses I could bring to you. So long, don't pass me by. I can't offer you lots of fancy things to make you come and stay. But I could wash your socks and mend your coat and cook you lots of good things every day. So love, if you're looking for a happy place, I've a heart that is absolutely free. Open arms that are aching for their first embrace. So long, discover me. Love, don't pass me by. Love, don't turn away. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Nice, beautiful. Well, that lovely job, Aminata. Forgive me if it looks like I'm like typing an email. I'm typing notes for myself, so I promise that's what I'm doing. I'm like thinking about it as we go. So I am clued into you, just so all of you know there. Talk to me a little bit about what. First of all, are there specific things you want to work on with this song? Are there specific challenges that it poses for you? What's its utility for you?
I feel like I'm like a terrible actor. So I like really want to get better at it. I don't know. I feel like it's just me mentally, but like I feel like I could be better. Sometimes I hold myself back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to break out that ice.
It's always fascinating to hear how people kind of describe themselves, because I'm like, man, I would never describe you as a terrible actor. But I think maybe what that tells us is it's just something that you want to invest more in, which is great. I mean, that's admirable. So that's fantastic. Good. Well, that's great, because actually a lot of my notes are sort of acting notes related to this song. I think you sound just so pretty on the whole thing. It feels very relaxed, which is such a beautiful asset that you bring to performance, because it's not something that most people have, especially when they're performing in front of others, even in a Zoom format. So there goes my dog again. She also felt like your performance was really relaxed and beautiful. I think that's a real asset, but I actually think it sort of undercuts the urgency of the song. And so I think what we've got to invest in is more of a sense of urgency, and I have some ideas that might bring that out a bit to the fore. So I'm going to kind of go through those. That's what a lot of my notes are kind of focused around for you, if you would sort of be so kind as to listen to those. The one thing that I would say is, again, there's just this beautiful, gorgeous sort of relaxed legato that you have throughout the whole thing. I think it could stand by more investment in your consonants, especially right from the very beginning. And this being classic Broadway, you can be a bit more sort of declamatory in your diction versus contemporary, we want to be more kind of relaxed with it. I would give it a little bit more dig, and I think it will just give it that kind of urgency and pop that it wants. What are the first things that you say? What are the first bits of lyric you have here?
Maybe, could be, maybe, could be.
Yeah, like right off the bat, it's somebody vacillating between different ideas. You know what I mean? So I would think that's like, there would want to be that investment in the words there that I think will help it feel, again, the key word being urgent. It feels sincere right now, which is beautiful. What an asset, but it's missing that sense of urgency. So that's one. It's just like dig into your consonants. Anytime you have a voiced consonant, do you know what I mean by a voiced consonant? a consonant that has pitch to it, like v, those things, yeah, feel free to really sing through those. Really like pull your breath through those consonants, because it's just going to give it that much more zing through the whole thing. You know what I mean? In all of it, which is great. You have the lyric, I have so many things, right?
Yes.
Again, that was when I wrote urgency. I need much more sense of I must have this now or I'm going to go crazy. You know, like, come on, love. You know, like, that it's got that sense of bubble and percolation underneath it, if that makes sense. Every time you say love, don't turn away, think about the punctuation that might be implied in that song. So it's like love, comma, don't turn away, love, colon, don't turn away, love, you know what I mean? So it's like love, don't turn, you know, so there's the break between love and don't turn away feels like it needs significance to it. So can you give it significance by making that break feel like, whoa, there's an event that's happening there. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. I agree with you. I agree with you. Especially the love punctuate, don't turn away. I feel like sometimes it meshes in together.
Yeah. Again, because you're so successful with your legato, I think it actually sometimes it's sort of like it's kind of muting the emotion of it sometimes because it's so beautifully sort of legato that it actually needs a little bit of a sing into it and then interrupt it and go on. I actually think the whole thing too can just feel more forte. I think you can bring up the dynamic of it. I think you can feel free to do that because I trust that you're not, I feel like you're a very tasteful singer, you know what I mean? So I trust that if I was like, do it all forte, it would actually turn out to be really beautifully nuanced in its dynamics. I feel like I trust that watching you perform. So I would say for your imagination, imagine you're just giving the whole thing that sense of like thrust that forte singing gives it. And I think the range of the song throughout will give it that dynamic crest and fall. You know what I mean? As you go. A couple other things to think about. When you always think about the structure of the song, when you go into the second A of the song, do you know what I mean by that? The return of the verse there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So again, it's repeated text. Anytime we're thinking about repeated text, we're thinking about what's the new idea here. You know? So again, yours felt beautifully like, I'm good. Like me and love, we're cool. You know what I mean? And I feel like, I'm like, there's gotta be, what we have to know as actors is that everything, I mean, I'm probably telling you things that you already know here, Aminata. But there's always that sense of playing a tactic and then it failing to get you what you want, right? So we have to presume you travel through that first day, you want, I don't know, love, maybe, yeah, like, or this person to like or want you back. And what happens at the end of the first day? Do you get what you want? That's a real question.
Oh, that's a good question. No.
No, you can't. Because otherwise, if you got what you want, it's like curtain down, song's over. She got what she wanted, audience applauds and leaves the theater, you know? So there's that sense of like, I haven't gotten it yet. And I've got to go back and ask for it in a different way. So that's why that second A appears there. So give us that sense of why that second A appears so it doesn't appear the same as the first A. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. It does. It does.
Every time you say so love, every time you have that, I'm curious as to how jazzy are you trying to make this?
Oh, no.
I don't know either, and I think that's my concern with it, is that it's an I don't know. Like, it feels like you're giving me a little scoop up to that top note, but it's like almost accidental, and I would rather it be either super intentional, so you know, that you really pull up to it, or you just go right into that upper note up there. I think that it's living in the kind of land between those two realities, musical style-wise. It feels a little bit like, I don't know where she wants this to live style-wise. And I think that you just make sort of a strong decision with that either way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Super. Then you have the bridge of the song, and then you come back to your verse chorus here. Again, why do we journey back to the verse chorus? What has to have happened there in terms of her objective?
Can you repeat that question again? I'm so
So
sorry.
after the bridge, what has to have happened for you to return to the verse chorus, for a new section of the song to return?
Um,
Did she get what she wanted?
I don't think she did.
The answer is it's an easy answer because the answer is always no. No, if you got what you wanted, then the song would be over. There would be no reason to go on singing. Or maybe you've gotten it but not fully, right? Or something. I think in this case, because it's a monologue, probably she's not getting it. She's sort of like talking to herself or talking to the universe, and then, it's like, hey, universe, and the universe answers with silence or with disdain or with disagreement or who knows, and so she's got to go back and sort of argue it out again in that verse, if that makes sense. I think because it's all in the abstract and she's speaking to love, think of love as a person, and so you're playing it right to somebody there. Make sense? I think rather than playing it to an abstract love. And then your last three questions that you have at the very end of the song. Sorry, I'm just reading down my notes as I go here. Your last three questions are what? What are the lyrics there?
Love, don't pass me by.
Uh
Love,
huh.
ooh, love, don't pass me by. Love. I'm so
I
sorry. I
guess
don't
they're
know why I just
commands.
blacked out. I just blacked out of
No,
it.
it happens. I know. I'm springing it on you. So that I know there are three sort of. They might be commands rather than questions, but three things that you say that are parallel but different. Make sure that they feel really different. Right. Right now they're feeling beautifully the same, but I think you have an opportunity there to really differentiate. And notice they build because we create. I mean, things always happen in threes at the end of songs, right? That's sort of a great kind of number there that writers often lean to. So think about how those differentiate from one another and how you can build them with that. Does that make sense? I
Yeah.
think all of those things will take this song, which is beautifully rendered, and just make it that much more compelling and urgent with what it needs to be. So those are my recommendations. Does that all sort of make sense? Do you have any questions about that?
Yes, they make sense.
Okay, gorgeous. Well, I think that's beautiful. So I'll say thank you so much, just so we can move on to the next singer. But gorgeous job, Amanada. Thank you so much for singing for the group. It's beautiful to hear this song, which I haven't heard in a very long time, and hopefully that advice helps you as you're working on your acting with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So I have next on my list, I think Emerald. Is that right? Emerald, are you here? If you are, feel free to unmute yourself and say hello. Let me just pull up my gallery view to see if we have. It does not look like we have somebody named Emerald. So I'm going to say, do we have. Looks like Madison. Yeah, you were prepared to
Yes,
sing
I'm
there?
right here.
Okay, great. Well, Madison, let's jump ahead to you, and then we'll see if Emerald shows up, and if there's anybody else that feels inspired to sing that would want to sing, we can certainly do that after Madison's done if Emerald's not here today. So, Madison, talk to me a little bit about yourself. Talk to me about what you're working on here and what your goals are, all that good stuff.
Okay, so my name is Madison Williams, and I am a soprano, originally from Dublin, Ohio,
Okay.
and I am currently in the second year of my master's degree at the
Oh.
University of Denver.
Oh, okay, cool.
Thank you.
Great.
And I did my undergrad at Oberlin Conservatory.
Oh, sure, right there in Ohio. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Gorgeous.
And
Okay.
I am, my master's is in voice and opera classical. I haven't really done too much musical theater and crossover, but I do think that would be a good thing to get more of
Sure.
in,
Yeah.
in the.
What are you working on today? Are you working on something classical? Are you working on something contemporary? What are we working on?
I am working on something classical
Oh, okay.
20th century.
Okay, which is what? Can I ask?
It is called Laurie's Song from Aaron Copland's The Tender Land.
Oh, sure. Okay. Great. Gorgeous. And do you have any are there any I'll ask you this in advance. Are there any sort of particular challenges that you're facing with it? That things that you want to work on with it?
I think the main thing about this is basically just make sure I sell it. I This can be a little bit, I think, can be a little bit of a challenge to sell because it's not probably not what most people would call high energy, but it does require energy, and it does require a certain approach to selling it. So I think that's probably my biggest thing, since I'm going to be using this aria in my aria package.
So so when you say selling it, you mean in an audition circumstance? Is that what you're talking about? Okay,
That's an
gotcha.
inaccurate circumstance.
Okay. Well, I hope that I can be of use to you in that. So let's get started with it whenever you're ready. I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself, Madison, so you have the
Okay.
floor and you can start when you're ready.
All right. And my sound is turned on. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. And can you hear that?
Yes, it's very faint, but you know what? My focus is on you, Madison, anyway, so it's fine either way.
Once I thought I'd never grow tall as this fence. Time dragged heavy and slow. But April came and August went before I knew just what they meant. And little by little I grew. And as I grew, I came to know how fast the time could go. Once I thought I'd never go outside this fence. This space was plenty for me. But I walked down the road one day, and just what happened I can't say. But little by little it came to me. The time between the earth and sky came beckoning to me. Now the time has grown so short, the world has grown so wide. I'll be graduated soon. Why am I strange inside? What makes me think I'd like to try to go down all those roads beyond that line above the earth and neath the sky? Tomorrow when I sit upon the graduation platform stand, I know my hand will shake when I reach out to take that paper with the ribbon band. Now that all the learning's done, oh, who knows what will now begin? Oh, it's so strange. I'm strange inside. The time has grown so short. The world so
Lovely job, Madison. Fantastic. Let me just take one extra note here. great. First of all, it sounds gorgeous. I love this aria. It's so it's so funny for me to like listen to classical song because it was so much a part of my world, 20 years ago. So not necessarily right now in my life. So it's a wonderful kind of throwback for me to hear this stuff because I knew this material and heard it so frequently back in the day. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, right, of course, this aria. So it's thrilling for me. So thank you for singing it. I think you make it sound effortless, which is gorgeous and really sort of so helpful in this sort of kind of spiel sopran kind of material that it feels just sort of light and easy and clarion like it does when you do it. I think because you mentioned that you kept using the word selling it, which is an interesting term. I mean, in certain ways, that's like literally what we're doing in an audition, which is sort of, a world that I know well as a person who's in casting. But I think we want to think about it. I want to sort of recommend thinking about the audition circumstance in a slightly different way, which is just sort of finding the honesty of this particular person's circumstance, of Laurie's circumstance here. And I think if we get at that, it will sell it without us feeling like we're being like, hucksters selling something. You know what I mean? I think that's really what our aim would be. And that's probably what your aim is anyway, Madison, but just to sort of reframe it in those terms might feel helpful. I'm going to give you some thoughts as we go, if that's okay here. I just took some notes, so if I'm looking to the side, it's because I'm reading my notes here. The big thing is thinking about your physicality with this. Now, obviously, it's not like you're going to do it jetés across the floor during this aria. Never mind the fact that, it's hugely difficult vocally, so you don't want to do a lot to sort of interrupt your breath and your carriage and all of that good stuff. I want you to think a lot about your gestures because you're very busy with your hands and it's beautiful to watch. It's almost sort of balletic port-de-bras as we're going here. But what we want to do is connect any movement that we do to text and to thought. So one thing to help you plan that out in thinking like an actor, and forgive me if I'm telling you something that you already know, but one thing that I want you to think about, so many computers here making dings all over the place, I'm going to shut them down. One thing that I want you to think about is the connection between thought and text. This is going to sound a bit abstract, but I'm going to make it quite literal. We always think something before we speak on it, right? So what's the very first thing that you say in this aria? What's the first text?
Once I thought I'd never grow tall as this fence.
Right. So the first thought is about thinking, when you were small that you would never grow any taller. Where does that thought occur in time?
That occurs when the piano starts.
Can I give you an even better suggestion there?
Yeah.
Which is that it occurs on the breath. Because think about this. If you were, think about your own human behavior, which is always a good model for how this would work. Let's say there's a bit of an intro here, right? There a bit of a piano intro or orchestral intro originally. So if I thought that right when the piano started about growing tall to the fence, and I went, and then didn't speak on it until 10, 15 seconds later, that would feel a bit sort of odd, right? You would think, did his Zoom screen freeze, right? So that intro is something else, right? As the piano is starting, I'm thinking, maybe I'm thinking about why I feel so strange. I've got this weird sort of anxiety or something feels odd and uncomfortable, and I'm trying to work out how I say that. And then on the breath, the moment you breathe right before you sing, I think, oh my God, I used to think I would never grow taller than this fence. And then that thought becomes so human because it happens right before I speak on it, right? Because that mirrors the sort of pattern of human thought and speech. Does that make sense? And what I think that will lead you to, Madison, I suspect if you start to think about each of those breaths as thoughts, as the impetus for thought, it's also going to be the impetus for movement, right? So right there, I'm going to think, oh my God, once I thought I'd never grow as tall as this fence, as opposed to once I thought I'd never grow as tall as this fence. So that kind of balletic thing, right, feels beautiful, but feels abstract versus the text that I'm actually leading to.
Yeah.
And also the sort of evenness of it feels like it takes you away from the immediacy of the thought. If I'm thinking like, oh my God, once I used to think that I would just be small for the rest of my life. Notice how, even though it's a beautiful ballad, my movement doesn't have to be through molasses, right? I can move like I would as a human being. I can move in a way that feels like, I always, what's the cartoon movie where the little dog goes, squirrel, squirrel, squirrel? You know what I'm talking about? The Pixar movie? I think it's an Up, maybe, or one of those movies. But it's that idea of like the moment something catches your attention, you're going to go right to it as a human being. We all do that. So that's one thought for you there. So thinking about where that impetus for movement is, that impetus for thought is, it's always right before speech. If there's an extended intro, that intro is not the thought that you speak on eventually. That intro is trying to work out, what the heck am I going to say in this moment? Right? And it's like, I feel weird. I don't know what I feel. Something strange inside me. Once I used to think I was just going to be small all my life. And that's what leads me into my next thought. Why, again, think on it. We talked about this a little bit with Amanada, but think about anytime you repeat text, why do you repeat it? So when you go back to once I thought, right? When you repeat that idea, why does it go again? Probably because what you're trying to work out for yourself didn't get resolved. So you play that text to the end like, I feel funny and I need resolution. And then you get to the end of it and you're like, I don't know yet. And then you're like, okay, rewind, girl. Okay, once I thought, okay, let's go back to the beginning and try this again. So it either has more urgency or a difference in intention. Does that make sense? So you're really trying to think on that as you go. Think about where your point of focus is here. This is always tricky with monologues because, you're not speaking to an actual person. But pick a point that you're always going to return to. So speak as if you're speaking to a girlfriend or a friend. You know what I mean? Like, pick somebody who's right in front of you. In an audition circumstance, if it's live, you're just above the heads of the auditioners and you're speaking to that person, and you might have thoughts that take you away from that person, but then you're returning to that same spot there. So it doesn't end up feeling like you're just sort of looking around. Of course, you can notice things in your environment because in this text, she does comment on the landscape around her, you know what I mean? But again, always come back to the person that you're landing these thoughts on, and make it sort of really quite literal there.
Yes.
Anything that you say in this, make sure that the character is discovering that in the moment. So for example, when you have the world has grown so wide, I could, as Lori, think, I've known that the world is wide all of my life and I'm just speaking on it now. But that doesn't feel very theatrically compelling. Does that make sense? That feels like a TED Talk. It doesn't feel like a theatrical piece. So it's always going to be more compelling if it's, oh my God, oh my, holy, bleep, that this world is so wide, right? So if I have that discovery in that moment, that's going to feel that much more compelling and sell it, as you would say. You know what I mean? What do you think she means when she says, why am I strange inside? I've always been curious about that lyric. How would you paraphrase that?
I have this weird gut feeling. I am nervous, but I'm also kind of excited for what comes next.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Gotcha. Okay, I'm going to go through my notes here too. You have a list leading up to it's not quite at the end, but nearing the end, when she says down all these roads, this, that, I'm sorry, it's been a while since I've heard this lyric, but she has a list that leads up to, what is that lyric there? Can you help me there, Madison?
I'd like to try to go down all those roads beyond that line above the earth and meet the sky.
Yeah. So I think she's got to discover each piece of that as she goes, right? So rather than being like, I've got a list prepared and I've got to go down the roads, up the sky, down the hill, you know what I mean? Rather than it being sort of having that forethought, discover it in the moment so that it's there and also there and there. So it builds upon itself in a sort of more live sense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Why do you think the piano interlude happens where it does?
The piano interlude,
it's kind of right after that moment, I think, right? Isn't it?
Do you mean the one above the earth and beneath the sky between that and tomorrow?
Yes.
I think that no. In that moment, I'm thinking, wow, graduation's happening tomorrow, and I'm I'm kind of nervous. How did I get here?
Can we relay it a little bit more immediately to the text that precedes it? So what has she just said? She said, I'm gonna go down the road and over the sky." What's the lyric there? Help me out.
What makes me think I'd like to try to go down all those roads beyond that line, above the earth and neath the sky?
Good, but something interrupts her there, right? So she's sort of expressing all of these ambitions, right, that she has, and then there's got to be some reason why she stops speaking. So I feel like what you're articulating that she might be thinking, I would have an easy time understanding were it written in a novel, but I think it's a tough thing to play through action, right? So I think simplify the idea. So is the idea that she expresses this really ambitious idea, and then in that moment when she has that, when you sing that gorgeous high note on sky, right? That then it stops, it interrupts and cuts off because it's like, what am I thinking? No. I can't do that. That's too much. I'm not going to dream that big or whatever it is. I think find something direct that sort of directly interrupts the previous thought and goes against it. And then she's got to build back to having the confidence to speak on again.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because I think the ideas that you're expressing in words are beautiful and they make sense psychologically, but they're too complex to play. Think about simple, direct actions that can be played in the moment. Everything you say is justified by the circumstance, but again, is easier to express in long sort of prose text versus sort of live on one's feet.
Yes.
Is that making sense? Sorry, more thoughts here. It's so strange. I'm strange inside. I think you want to think on why those are two different versions of the same idea, kind of. It's a qualification of an existing idea. So why does she choose to qualify it? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I would say that to describe oneself as strange inside is to actually not understand even how you're feeling in the moment. So it's almost like every time you say strange, it's like, I feel, I don't know. So the action of the song is actually trying to work out what she's feeling. It's that moment in life where you don't even know what you're feeling. You're like, it's strange. I'm strange inside. You know what I mean? I think it's a really beautiful moment in the text that expresses that very human idea of like not knowing how the heck to describe how you're feeling, which I find very relatable. You know what I mean? So use that turn in the text to be like, she says, I'm so strange. And then it's like, nah, that's not quite it. I'm strange inside. Like she's like searching for the right words and not hitting upon it. Do you know what I mean in that? So again, I'm always looking for those operatives in the text that sort of feel weird and quirky because they're opportunities to act on something, which is great. When you say so wide at the end and you have your glorious high note that you sound so beautiful on, do you realize that in this moment that it's wide?
I think I've always heard and known that it's wide, but I think I'm actually I'm actually coming to terms with it here. Yeah.
Let's not even say you're coming to terms with it. Let's say it's a discovery in the moment. So again, we don't express it as a gradual, but we just express it as a whoa. You know what I mean? Because I think that feels even that much more theatrically compelling in what you're doing, rather than it feeling like, to try to express gradually coming to something is challenging. You know what I mean? And not necessarily related to even how human behavior works. So just think on how you can rephrase things in terms of direct terms, and I think it will lock you into that acting piece a little bit stronger. I think the other thing is always play a sense of conflict in something. She wants, I think, everything out of her life. I think she's deeply ambitious. Tell me if you disagree with me, Madison. I think she's deeply ambitious, deeply adventurous, but also realizes that to to see out those ambitions, to see out that adventure is risky. So there's that sense of, I want everything. Wait, oh shoot, if I want everything, I'm risking everything. So I think there's always that turn of phrase that you can play. Again, you can vacillate between those two ideas. Playing like, look at me, I'm Lori, I'm here, I'm ready to conquer the world. I don't know if I'm ready to conquer the world. That's a little scary. I was once a little girl, not as tall as this fence. So going back and forth between those ideas, I think helps us to understand the central conflict of the song.
Yes.
And I know I should say aria, but I say song because I'm, just a schlocky pop pianist. So there we go. Does that help you, Madison? Does that give you some ideas for this?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, good. Excellent. Well, nice job. Thank you for reminding me of this gorgeous aria. It was beautiful to hear.
Thank you so much. I have a lot to work on and think about now.
Oh, that's awesome, Madison. I'm so glad. So I have seen a request that Charlene may be ready to sing, and then I see Meg. I see that you've also requested that. I don't know if we'll have time, so sorry, Meg. But we'll start with Charlene just because I'm going in the queue in the order of the queue in my chat here. So let's see what we have time for. Charlene, are you here?
Yes, hi.
There you are.
Am I
Hi.
heard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that was really, really helpful because I'm actually doing Lori's song for my juries tomorrow.
Oh.
So I was like, yes, give me more.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's wonderful. Well, we can never have enough Lori's song. Excellent. So what are you doing? What are you singing today, Charlene?
Well, so that was the only other English song that I had that wasn't 6 minutes. However, I do have "Ferry Me Across the Water" by Ned Rorem.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, I love Nenron. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's sweet, short. We can.
That's good because we are a little tight on time, but I'll speak quickly there. Excellent, Charlene. I'll give you the floor. I'll mute myself so you have the floor.
Awesome. I'm just gonna. Forgive me, 2 shakes. It is not loud enough at all. Ferry me across the water, do, boatman, do. If you've a penny in your purse, I'll ferry you. I have a penny in my purse, and my eyes are blue. So ferry me across the water, do, boatman, do. Step into my ferry boat, be they black or blue, and for the penny in your purse, I'll ferry
Great, Charlene. I think we're having a little bit of a few audio issues, so the sound quality. I'm sure your voice is stunning in real life, but it's just a little bit sort of just warped in terms of what we're getting through the mic. No worries. I think I'll just give you, since we're short on time, I'll give you some quick ideas about this, maybe from an acting standpoint, since that seems to be our focus today and seems to be useful. Talk to me about what this text is about. It's always tricky when we're dealing, it's an art song, right? So we're dealing with poetic text. So it's always a little bit tricky to sort of pull that from the abstract into something more kind of terrestrial. So talk to me about what this text is about to you.
So the way I'm hearing it is it's actually dialogue that one person is singing, right? So it's ferry me across the water, do boatman do. Like, what's the name of the boatman in the underworld? I cannot remember. I know his dog's name is Cerberus, but I can't remember the guy himself. But so someone's talking to him and he's like, I'm the soul, carry me across the water. And the boatman's like, where's your penny? It's the Greek story, right? Where they put the coins on the eyes of the dead to ferry them along. And so he says, well, it doesn't matter if your eyes are black or blue. For that penny, I'll ferry you. And that last very long, haunting pianissimo, if you can actually get it done, which takes, I feel like, a lifetime to figure out, is like that haunting where they've sailed, they've gone.
Gotcha. So you're sort of quoting two different speakers here as you go, right?
Yes, yes.
I think that one of the things that's a beautiful and very fascinating sort of mythical story. I think one of the things that can help us with that, because I have not sailed on the river Styx myself, so I don't have any kind of like personal reference for that. You know what I mean? So I'm always trying to think, okay, well, what do the characters in this story, and I guess there are multiple characters in this story, what do the characters in this story need, right? What do they not have that they have now? What does it mean? Is there some sort of metaphor that we can draw, sort of as if that we can draw to our own lives that feel like the circumstance of this character? So this is a character who I'm presuming has passed, right, and is being carried into sort of the next life, the afterlife, or whatever. Is my interpretation correct there? And so that's not a circumstance that any of us, thank goodness, can sort of relate to. But the question is, maybe there is something of Laurie's circumstance, for example, in this character, right? So is there something in feeling strange inside, or feeling unsettled, or feeling like you're uncertain of what your future might hold, right? I mean, quite literally, yeah? And needing to resolve that, and wanting the ambition of getting to the other side of the river there, but also being afraid that it can be realized. Perhaps? I mean, am I stretching it too far to try to compare it to Laurie's song? Maybe.
No, it actually does make a lot of sense. Kind of like if you think about death as a rebirth, it's like you're off to you're given this bus ticket, and they're like, all right, go on, and you're like, okay, and it's exciting, but also terrifying.
You know what's beautiful, Charlene, in watching you describe that scenario is watching all of the gorgeous acting beats that are coming out of you inherently. You're like, okay, you know what I mean? And all of that is so naturally organic to your own personal vocabulary that I think, how can you pull that into the scenario of this song? I know that obviously the technical demands of the song require a certain focus on that, but once that becomes part of the muscle memory for you, can you start to work in those natural ways of speaking? And I think just talking on the song in your own personal as if, I love thinking about it as getting on a bus, which is how you described it, right? I love thinking about it, you were almost sort of saying as if like as one going to school or going to college or something. Yeah, I mean, that feels like a whole kind of like chapter shift in one's life. And so speaking on that, paying attention to how your own sort of personal behavior falls into that scenario, and then stealing from your own vocabulary, saying, can I bring that to this song? Because the thing is, all of the gorgeous poetry that this would be a Ned Rorem text as well, right? Didn't he write the text as well, or is the text somebody else?
So I have the text as being by Christina Rossetti.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I stand corrected. So with her gorgeous text, I mean, that's going to read regardless. You know what I mean? You don't have to work for the poetry because the poetry is written into the song. What you have to work for, your job, your onus, is to work for the real human behavior and the real scenario there. So I would continue to explore what's the as if in this for me. I certainly can't say what would it be like if I died and I had to sail across the River Styx. I hope we're not imagining what that would be like. Certainly not at your sort of juncture in life, hopefully. But I think that you'd want to think, what is that as if? Is it going to college? Is it going to start a new job, or to move to a new city, or to go home so you can sit and be on Zoom in classes for the next year and a half? You know what I mean? Like what is it, right? And I think the more you can find that, and the more you speak on that, you start to discover what your natural choices are going to be in that. And then I think you go, why can't that apply to this gorgeous poetic text? And doesn't that just make it that much more palpable to deliver it, if it does? Does that help you with it, I think, in sort of discovering it?
It really does. Sometimes I feel like in academe, when it comes to classical music, you lose a lot of the heart of theater sometimes, because you're
Yeah.
so focused on. So it was nice to get that mixed back in.
I think that they can marry, and I know that, especially with classical singing, sometimes the technical demands are so high that we get caught in, I think even like, for example, like Madison, I'm noticing all the gorgeous port de bras, and it's like we do all of that to engender certain aspects of breath control, for example, or legato or whatever, right? Like we sort of mirror those things to get those technical aspects. But then once we've built that basis of technique, which all of you have gorgeously, right? Because you're all singing so beautifully and you've worked toward that, then can we say, okay, let's pull that away for a second, because now we've conquered that aspect. And now can we lock it back into what is the real human behavior? So we're doing what we're always doing in any kind of performance scenario, which is we're telling stories and we're communicating thoughts and ideas in that. So that's sort of my thesis statement with that, and hopefully that's helpful for you guys in terms of your work there. Meg, I'm so sorry that we have run out of time for now, so I don't want you to get cut short in your singing. But does anybody have any quick questions before we dismiss? I just want to quickly open it up to any Q&A. I see that's you, Meg. Sorry, yes. Tell me.
Yeah, I'd love to ask you a question.
Please.
So I'm actually going to sing for you tomorrow in the auditions.
Fantastic. I look forward to it.
So my big question is, you've asked for pop and rock. What are you looking for in your auditions? Like, what are like the three most important things someone can do in an audition for you that helps you out?
Well, the answer is broad and specific. So obviously I am responsible for casting 137 different productions. So the answer is, what am I looking for? A lot of different things. It depends on what I'm aiming for. Almost all of our material, really all of our material, leans contemporary. So I need to hear that you have a solid grasp of contemporary vocal style and musicality, and that you can deliver that, sort of on cue. And then beyond that, I think any casting person would say this, that you just want to see a sense of who somebody is. You like just a sense of personality, and there's no wrong answers in that. It's just getting a sense for like, oh, what is this? What's gonna emerge from this human being on stage? When that person is authentically themselves, and that's always fascinating and interesting. Yeah, that's not three things, but those are probably the two things. Can I say two, Meg? Will that do? Okay, great. They're two big things that are complex, but yes. Carly, I see your hand up there.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, I lost your sound. I had it for a second, I think. Nope. I'm hearing something.
Okay, how about now?
There you are. Yes, gotcha.
Sorry. So I'm also gonna sing tomorrow. So that was a great question, Meg. Thank you.
Oh, great.
I was just curious. So I'm opera background, classical background, but have a lot of musical theater experience. But my sound tends to be a lot more classical. And I'm just kind of wondering, as far as like for casting on cruise lines, and maybe it's different, if you go to different cruise lines other than like RCL, but what do you recommend trying to like tamper down the classical, or just like do you, and then if they like you, you don't? What's kind of your opinion on that?
Well, I certainly think for what we're casting, there would need to be a real kind of facility with contemporary vocal. And I think one of the reasons that we have a sort of several year investment in coming to Classical Singer is speaking to both students and teachers about about what it means to be a crossover artist, about what it means to have that classical singing technique background, but also transition into pop music, understanding that they are different approaches, that one is not a derivative of the other, that in fact there might be things that go from one to the other, but they are in fact distinct musical styles. I don't have I can't tell you, Carly, like you should do this with your singing voice, because it's just, what are your career ambitions, right? Like what do you want out of your career, out of your singing life, out of all of that, right? I certainly think if you have an interest in working for Royal Caribbean or working in contemporary vocal, really understanding what that style set is and how your instrument makes sense on that. Maybe finding a teacher who specializes in that sort of singing and can help you find those techniques would be useful.
Okay.
Is that an answer to your question? I hope it is. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I always worry about it feeling like, well, I'm going to tamp down on my classical to make my pop, even though I understand you expressing in that way. I do think there's sort of, it's kind of like, not to quote the Bible, I'm like an atheist, but like give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. You know what I mean? So like I love classical singing and I love classical music, and that has a certain style set that it demands and it wants. And it was a style that was designed for acoustical singing, if we're talking about 19th century music, in large houses. Mm-hmm. Pop singing was designed for singing into a microphone. So it is sung in a way that reads really well on microphones. So one thing I can recommend is record yourself on a microphone, and you'll learn a ton on a unidirectional microphone from figuring out how a voice lands on a microphone. You'll be fascinated with, you're like, oh wait, I can do that and it sounds huge. And I do all this stuff that I do in my classical singing, and it the microphone does nothing for it. It's fascinating, right? If I do all of this loft, right? It's like the microphone just is like, meh, you know what I mean? But I can do something that's really Billie Eilish-y and breathy, and the microphone is like, yes, girl, I'm pumping this up. You know what I mean? And that's why pop singing sounds like what it does, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I'm totally going to try that tonight.
It's summarizing a huge set of things really quickly, but yeah. Are there any other questions before we go? Before we dismiss?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I actually had to cancel the audition that I was doing tomorrow because I decided to go to the university. Anyway, sorry. Could you describe a little bit what it would be like to work for Royal Caribbean? Like, how long is it? Do you do shows every night?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll summarize it as quickly as I can. Obviously, it's a little bit different depending on what ship and what show you're doing. But, our performers are, I think sometimes people have a concern, oh, I'm going to go perform on a cruise ship and I'm going to have to call bingo and scrub the floors. And our performers are their only duties are performance duties. They typically do, many of our performers do more than one production in a single venue. So they might have 2 or 3 shows that they do. In a single venue, they're typically not longer than about 50 minutes, maybe an hour, although we do have 7 hour and a half long Broadway musicals that we do. We used to do the full version of Cats at like 3 hours, which was insane. Who wants to see that on the cruise ship? But now it's an hour and a half. So it's that. In terms of number of shows, it's dependent upon itinerary and all sorts of different things, venue capacity, all of that. But typically it's less than what you would do on a Broadway schedule, where we think of like an 8-show a week schedule. Typically it's that or slightly less than that. And remember too, the shows are shorter. So it's that, plus you're doing brush up rehearsals and tech runs and sound checks throughout the week. So you have those responsibilities, but generally it's once you're in performance, it's a bit of a lighter schedule for yourself, and you're traveling the world and seeing all sorts of gorgeous places and getting paid, I think, a really competitive salary as you're doing it, with benefits and all that gorgeous stuff, because it's a big corporation and we have that kind of stuff. And then the contract lengths are right now our contracts are running around 10 months from beginning to end. I would say under normal circumstances they'd be between 6 and 12 months. But now they're averaging a little on the longer side, because in this current environment, the aspects of embarkation and disembarkation are rather complex, as you can imagine, if you've tried to travel anywhere in these days. So so we just are trying to sort of like, while jumping through all these hoops to get people to the far reaches of the world, we're trying to sort of, make it worth their while and keep them on the ship. Not keep them on the ship, you can leave if you want to, but employ them for a longer term there. Did that answer your question, Charlene, there?
Yes, it did. Thank you. I was
Yeah.
just so very curious. It was like I'm so used to 2 months, 1 month stints at a theater
Oh
that it's
yeah.
like,
No, they're definitely longer than that. We almost never do a contract shorter than 6 months because remember, if you're traveling to, I mean, we're traveling. Right now, I'm casting 2 casts out of Hong Kong. If you're going to Hong Kong, it's like it's a 24-hour flight. You don't want to do a 4-week contract just to get there. So there's that. Yeah. And if you guys want, one of the things you can do is always visit our website, which is royalcaribbeanproductions.com. You can create a casting profile there. If you're not able to audition tomorrow, we review casting submissions there. If you have an interest in that. And if you just want to kind of know like what life is like on a ship for performers, we do have an Instagram and a Facebook that we love. It's Royal Caribbean Productions. And then our Instagram is RCCL, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, RCCL Talent. Is our handle. So feel free to follow us there. We're always sharing, it's a lot of stories from performers who are on board. So you can kind of see little bits and pieces of the shows or the rehearsals and some of the photos that the performers take. Like, here's me, doing a flip in front of the Acropolis, that kind of stuff. So, so it's usually pretty entertaining to watch. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to those of you who sang. And I really appreciated hearing you guys. And you all sound gorgeous. And I love hearing classical voices. It makes my heart sing. So thank you so much. And to those of you who I'll see tomorrow, I look forward to it. And thank you, Allie, for your help in coordinating this. And I guess we'll dismiss. Yes, Allie, are we ready to do that?
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And thank you for presenting, Greg. That was awesome. Okay, hopefully we can see each other later. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
everybody.
much. Great masterclass.
Thank you so much for coming.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Bye.